Yo, my name is Eldritch, or some of you might know me as Shadow X or The Real Shadow X. I had a channel before this called The Real Shadow X, and on that channel I had both videos of horror games and my music videos or lyric videos that I would do for my music. But the trouble with that was that I had my fan base split in two. One side was the fans of the music and the other was the fans of the horror game content I would make, and neither one of them were really into both. So, in order to organize everything, I had to make this new channel, Eldritch, and I'm slowly moving those videos over here, and this is the first one that I could do. The quality, unfortunately, is kind of dog shit, and that's because I did not save, foolishly, I did not save a video file of that video. So I had to screen record through YouTube this entire video and then just re-input that into Filmora Wondershare, and now I'm spitting it right back out at you guys. So the editing is a bit dated. The video originally was done like a year and a half ago, but nonetheless it's still a pretty solid video in my opinion. So without further ado, let's get into the Slit-Mouthed Woman. I got a lot of stuff to cover for you guys. There's 2 horror movies, there's 2 horror games, and a bunch of other random bullshit that correlates to the Slit-Mouthed Woman legend. So if you're a fan of Japanese folklore or just really creepy, like almost cryptids or demons and shit, this video should be right up your alley. Kuchisake-Onna, aka the Slit-Mouthed Woman, is a malevolent figure in Japanese urban legends and folklore. The Slit-Mouthed Woman is described as a malicious spirit, or onryo, who partially covers her face with a mask or other items and carries a pair of scissors. To clarify, an onryo is basically a ghost in Japanese belief, very much similar to yokai, which are essentially strange and supernatural entities. Kuchisake-Onna is most often described as having long, straight, black hair, pale skin, and otherwise being rather beautiful aside from her scars. According to legend, she asks potential victims if they think she is beautiful. If they respond with no, she will either kill them with her long medical scissors on the spot, or wait until nightfall to murder that person in their sleep. If they say yes, she will reveal that the corners of her mouth are slit from ear to ear, and she will then repeat her question, "Do you think I am beautiful?" or "Do you think I'm pretty?" or something along those lines. If, when asked the second time, the individual says no, she will kill them with the scissors. If they say yes hesitantly, she will cut the corners of their mouth in such a way that resembles her own gruesome disfigurement. So it almost seems like there's no winning, that if you encounter Kuchisake-Onna, you're either gonna die or be permanently scarred. However, it just so turns out one might be able to survive an encounter with Kuchisake-Onna by answering her question by describing her appearance as average, or by distracting her with money
I like money.
or hard candies. This part of the legend I find kind of funny, and I wonder who came up with that assumption of the legend. A spirit such as this would have no use of money, nor candy for that matter, but it is what it is. I gotta keep in mind that this is a foreign legend, and Japanese cultural beliefs are very different from my white American cultural beliefs. I'm also certain any Japanese historian would roll their eyes at the mention of the American Bigfoot and laugh at its stupidity, so I'll let this money and candy bribe slide, as lame as I think it is. On the contrary, some variations of this legend claim that if the victim says yes calmly and fearlessly, that she will reward them with a blood-red ruby and let them live, but if they look back, she will show her blood-curdling smile and slash them to death. I like this version of potentially surviving much more than a money or candy bribe. I have heard some people who believe in summoning spirits say that spirits like sugar, which of course sugar isn't candy, but I still find that to be a rather ridiculous and shallow addition to such a cultural legend. The same can be said with money, although I do recognize that wealth and greed have a lot to do with demonology and Western ideas. For example, in Dante's Inferno, the Greek god of wealth, Plutus, is in the greed circle of hell. But All in all, if you were to bribe some sort of spirit in most Western beliefs, it's with your soul or something like that, rather than material objects. Beings from the other side are unlikely to give a shit about earthly items. Perhaps that isn't the case for Japan, I'm not sure. Nevertheless, I do like the idea that one needs to have fearless confidence in order to survive. And most likely, that rarely would ever happen. A lot of people act tough, especially on the internet, but if they ran into such a thing, they would probably shit their pants. That is also why my personal beliefs in things like this, ghosts, yokai, demons, spirits, whatever you want to call it, is limited to say the least. I think anybody who was truly intelligent, not necessarily close-minded, but educated, would feel similar to the way I feel. If I actually saw a demon, for example, plain and obvious, maybe horns, maybe wings, whatever, my entire life would change. If there are demons, there are angels, and vice versa. They are opposites. And if I saw a spirit like the slit-mouthed woman, for example, it would probably be obvious that this thing in front of me was so out of the ordinary that I'm not going to say I would be able to survive from fearless confidence, but rather I would be more awestruck than scared. I read a fuck ton. I love learning about different religions and cultures, and when you start to see the patterns across the board, you question the validity of a lot of things. Although I also question the very basic atheistic science that I've been taught in high school and college. I kind of question everything. So if by chance there is a Japanese person watching this video who maybe their family or cultural upbringing believed in the spirit, just know that I'm not trying to shit on it by saying that I personally don't believe in it. I'm a very skeptical person, but I am also annoyed at the Westerners who claim they were possessed or saw a possession or saw a demon or the Ouija board acted up on its own, because if any of that really happened and you truly believed it, whilst understanding wholeheartedly how impossible that is, your entire life would or should change. I had to get that out of the way because I've had straight up liars tell me paranormal experiences, and it tells me that they're either uneducated or completely full of shit. Most ghost sightings or paranormal experiences can easily be explained by scientific principles. But enough on that. I'll circle back to that point later. So, diving deeper into the story of Kuchisake-Onna. According to the legend, Kuchisake-Onna was a woman who was mutilated during her life, with her mouth being slit from ear to ear. In some versions of the story, Kuchisake-Onna was the adulterous wife or a mistress of a samurai during her life. She grew lonely as a samurai would always be away from home fighting, and because of this, she would begin to have affairs with men around the town. When the samurai heard of this, he was outraged, as one could imagine, but as a punishment for her infidelity, her husband sliced the corners of her mouth. Now, other versions of the tale include that her mouth was mutilated during a medical or dental procedure, that she was mutilated by a woman who is jealous of her beauty, or that her mouth is filled with numerous sharp teeth. I don't think that the cause of the scar would be from the sharp teeth, but having sharp teeth in general, I wouldn't be surprised if that was accurate. Also, clearly this legend has many different variations and backstories, as most legends do. Sometimes that can be a good thing and sometimes that can be a bad thing. Most of the time, such backstories are just from different perspectives or portray different lessons. For example, a lot of legends come from disciplining children. Don't go running off in the woods or else the bad thing will eat you. Don't hurt the chickens or else the chicken monster will kill you in your sleep, etc, etc, etc. Now, I'll wait a little bit before I speculate on why the slit-mouthed woman exists, because first, there's a little more to her story to be told. Now, after her death, the woman returned, obviously as a vengeful spirit, or onryo, and as an onryo, she covers her mouth with a cloth mask, often specified as a surgical mask, or in some iterations a hand fan or handkerchief. She carries a sharp instrument with her, which has been described as a knife, a machete, a scythe, or a large pair of scissors. Now, this part is actually interesting because originally I thought that it was specifically scissors, but it turns out it could be almost any common bladed weapon, but just with popular emphasis on scissors. As for the scissors, they could symbolize a myriad of different things. While I am very skeptical with dream interpretations, considering they really can only be correctly interpreted by the individual dreamer, it is a common idea that if you dream of scissors, it could symbolize warning you that you have to complete a project, or that you have to be careful and not make serious mistakes. That doesn't mean that that applies for anybody who dreams about scissors ever, but it would make sense in this particular concept. Being careful not to make serious mistakes, well, You'd have to be very careful to choose what you say wisely when faced with the slit-mouthed woman. Not to mention that in some versions of her story, if you say she is not beautiful, she waits until you are sleeping to kill you. Probably with those scissors. Scissors also commonly symbolize cutting something out of your life, or just, the cutting in itself can be applied to many different things, but ultimately, I'd say it correlates to an abrupt ending. A horror movie that I really like called Us, directed by Jordan Peele, has a lot of scissor symbolism. You'd have to watch the movie yourself to really understand the weight of what I am getting at, but nonetheless, for this movie, people speculate that the scissors represent a severing or separation of life, but that they can also signify spiritual unity and physical closeness. Repeated scissor imagery suggests the concept of paring away the non-essential elements of our existence. This may have to do with an emotional trauma that requires healing, but maybe all of that has absolutely nothing to do with the creation of the slit-mouthed woman. Who could say for sure? Scissors could mean a bunch of different things, as it is an extremely common object. Some say that it connects to logic and decisiveness, that they are symbolic of clear thought and logic, hence someone should stay mentally sharp, rational, and in control. Technically, I'd say this makes sense, given that when faced with a slit-mouthed woman, you need to make very important decisions that mean life or death, or permanently fucked up face as a third option. Some people also say that they can be used to cut symbolic bonds or energetic ties with people, hence one should make sure they have an equal exchange of energy in their relationships, otherwise it might be time to consider cutting that short. This could also connect to the story if you look at the version where she was mutilated by her enraged samurai husband, upon finding out about her adultery with other men. Yet, while all these things make sense to me as to why the emphasis on the scissors, it could all be grasping at nothing. The puzzle pieces fit, but that doesn't mean that they were intended to. Remember, while the scissors are the most popular weapon that Kuchisake-Onna uses, it is also mentioned that she could use machetes, knives, or even scythes. Although there is still some very plausible connection in the sense of cutting things short, there's a very big difference from specifically these types of bladed weapons as opposed to something like a blunt weapon like a hammer or mallet or mace or something. Although I know that the scythe that might be intended is probably a Japanese farming scythe for things like rice fields and is nothing like the Grim Reaper scythe that might come to the mind of the average Western audience. Hence, I would fully understand the usage of the scissors, but going into knives, machetes, and scythes, that's a much more vague, gray area, so I can't dig too deep on that. Continuing the legend, she is also described as having supernatural speed. There's probably no symbolism for, other than perhaps lethal swiftness with how she kills, connected to how scissors symbolize abruptly ending something with a singular snip. Yet, it wouldn't really be a singular snip, no. Kuchisake-Onna would rapidly and very quickly slice you up with multiple very gruesome cuts. Kuchisake-Onna asks potential victims if they think she is attractive, which I've said before, but it is actually phrased as watashi kurei, which translates to am I pretty or am I beautiful. We know that if the person answers no, they get killed with her weapon, and if they answer yes, she reveals her true image and mutilated mouth. She then repeats the question phrased as kore demo, which translates to even with this or even now, and if the person still responds with no or screams in fright, she will kill that person. And as I said, if the final response is yes, the slit-mouthed woman spares their life but slices their mouth to mimic her own. Apparently there's more to the candy bribe. I still find this laughable and I want to treat it like a childish addition to the legend, but nonetheless, apparently if you give her candy or money, it gives you time to run away. It's just to distract her. In particular, the candy known as Beko Ame, made of caramelized sugar, would be used. Or you could, I suppose, repel her by saying pomade 3 times. Now, that's kinda weird considering pomade is a greasy ointment used in hairstyling. The idea isn't that far-fetched. It reminds me of saying Bloody Mary 3 times to invoke her in the mirror, but since pomade is a material for hair, perhaps it correlates to Kuchisake-Onna's hair? I mean, the legend says she has straight black hair and a pale face. Are you supposed to insult her hygiene and hairstyle by saying pomade 3 times to go away? I'd imagine that'd get you killed. Or maybe, hilariously, it makes her cry out of embarrassment, giving you time to run away. It's a very odd thing to have to say 3 times to escape a malicious spirit. Although, I mean, pomade is fairly popular in Japan, but still, this part of the legend is weird and doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But let's veer off for a minute and I will come back to dissecting this spirit with research and analysis. What I want to discuss is a game that I got from Steam, which is called simply Kuchisake-Onna. This is one of 2 games in this video I'll be covering to get a wider and broader understanding of this legend, but to also be my retarded self cracking jokes in the midst of terror and exposing my insanity to the internet for everybody to either laugh at or shriek in discomfort and send me death threats. Either one is welcome, so let's dive into this game. The way I'm gonna do this is I'm just going to show my edited footage beginning to end. It's a little under 20 minutes. Then afterward I'll share my thoughts on the game, but only after you've reacted to it properly and experienced it the way I did. Well, better than I did because I cut out all the nonsense. Here's my gameplay.
That is one loud intro. Menu sequence, holy shit. And then moving into this silence. Weird. Alright. Any of these books mean anything? Probably not. Okay, I guess I can't. Oh, well that's useless. How am I gonna get to the bottom drawer if the top drawer's in the way? What's this? December 1998. Today, I found out that there is a way to immortalize yourself. It requires sacrifice, but it is worth it. I will look into this. Okay. Cool. Are any of these books like hidden, hidden passageway books? You would think that one would be. I guess not. It's very quiet, other than my loud footsteps. Well, the note said December 1998. Is that it? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Don't like that noise. Storage key. Can't open any of those. Can't watch porn on the TV. 1 out of 5-star game. I said TV. I meant computer screen. Kind of stupid, if you didn't know. The silence is truly deafening. Don't know what key that was for. A lot of empty space in this fucking house. I'm glad I have Mitsuhiko. I am not good at pronouncing Japanese names. I'm glad I have Mitsuhiko. After the ritual, we will both become immortal. It took us 2 years to build the underground research lab and many, many years of research and failed rituals, but we are almost there. We will become immortal. Not if I have nothing to say about it. Excuse yourself? December 2004. It was a cold winter night, 1998. I will never forget the day I found out that I could be immortalized. They're gonna make me go downstairs, right? Yeah, because there's a door that I haven't unlocked yet. Which is this one. I have a key, do I not? Oh, there's jump mechanics. Isn't that amazing? I also seem to have some sort of stamina meter for how long I can sprint, so I'm gonna save my sprint. I should wash the key? In what world do you wash the key before you use it to open a door? Is that a Japanese thing, or am I just a dirty human being? Nice water effects, that's outstanding. I don't like how quiet it is. While on one hand I wish there was some atmospheric noise, on the other hand, it is also very chilling to where I have a feeling a jump scare could happen any fucking minute. Was it not this door? Am I dumb? This door. I am dumb. Oh, well there's the atmospheric noise that I actually wish that I didn't wish for. Okay. Now we're talking. What do these say? There's no crouch in this game, and there's also no zoom button, so... I'm assuming I could hide here in case bitch face wants to cut me up. I can't close the door though. That sucks. Almost done. We are almost done with the research. The ritual should be ready in a couple of days. Finally, Mitsuhiko and I will become immortal. Is Mitsuhiko supposed to be the name of the lady? Yeah, now the atmosphere is super dense. Where is he? Mitsuhiko is not here yet, but the ritual is ready. I told him that I left the key where we always do. Above the trees. Yes, it's on the top of the forest. So Mitsuhiko is a male name. I don't want to go in there. Bastard. They're gonna make me go into the dark, spooky, scary hallway. Ah, fuck it. I ain't no bitch. Why is it flickering? I don't much appreciate the flicker. Hello? Interesting. This is the trees? Is that the key up there? Come on, get it. I think I got it. That's interesting. Above the trees. Ah, fuck. Oh, you suck. It got real fucking quiet. What's up with the dust particles? Dude, I would be sneezing so hard right now, it would break the silence every 3 seconds. What key did I pick up though? For that door. Okay. Ritual room key. Man, it's one of those games where like in every room you find something to enter the next room, and in that room you find something that you need to enter the next room with, and the process repeats. Although that is a very age-old structure for a game. It's not very original. I sound like a fucking nerd. Actually, it's not original, it's lame. Ah! I don't want to talk about it. How do I dodge that though? I mean, fuck. She didn't even ask me if I think that she's pretty. Maybe I was sprinting. Do I gotta go pick up all the keys again? Ah. Made me jump, man. Right as I was talking shit about it. That's usually what happens. But it startled me. There's a difference from scary and startling. Yeah, now I gotta go to the ritual room, which is not a very nice room. That's the one that's in the fucking abyss hallway. It's gonna be right over here. Fuck you. Cunt, I can't sprint. Well, that's dumb. Isn't she... Hi. I thought your whole deal was you're supposed to ask me if I think you're beautiful or not, and if I say no, you chop me up, and if I say yes, then you show your face, and then you kill me if I say no again. So why are you just chasing me with those scissors, you fucking bitch? Where is she? Ah, hello. Yeah, you go down that way, you do that. You do that. Fucking son of a... Okay, good, good. I thought that I didn't have the right key or something. One day before the final ritual, and Oh, I thought it was like once upon a time. One day before the final ritual, and I can't find Mitsuhiko. Looks like he bailed. Well, am I Mitsuhiko? Is that what this is about? Fuck your mom. That's the way I came from. How is she already over here? That does not make chronological sense. Because she would have to come through this door to get into here. Does such a spirit walk through walls? Stop stepping around. I really wish I could close doors in this game. I finished the ritual without Mitsuhiko. It didn't work. I summoned some kind of monster. Hiding in this room won't save me for long. It'll save me for a few seconds, won't it? Until she comes back around. So, it appears that Bitchface was summoned on accident. Mitsuhiko gave me the wrong ritual. Did he trick me? I summoned a monster. Sprint, sprint, you fucking bag of dicks. Sprint. What do I do in this situation? I found a bunch of notes, but not a singular key. Did the game give up that cliche? Let me in. Let me in, let me in, let me in.
Let me in. Let me in.
Okay. Alright. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. It sounds like she's wearing high heels when she walks, or like some sort of slippers. Some fancy fucking polished bitch shoes. I spit on you. Fucking what? Fucking what? What a load of bullshittery. You suck, you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck. You suck, I win. I'm the best ever. The keys to the ritual room are somewhere in the library, but how? How will I get them? You're telling me, dude. Wait, so I'm confused. Who's writing these notes? Am I writing these notes? So somewhere in that room down that long, ominous hallway, in that library, is the key that I need. I'm trying to listen very attentively. Don't know if I grabbed it or not. It didn't register, but I'm gonna try it. I got it. Cool. What in the amnesia is this? I've seen this kind of shit. Don't make me mix some fucking concoction, please. Ugh. Instructions. Pick one ingredient. Place it in one of the 3 tubes. If the right ingredient has been placed in all 3 tubes, the door will be opened. Oh, it's a riddle. I like riddles. Hunting at night, the wisest of them all to fill his appetite. Okay. Clicking all night long to find his one true love. Hopping around, feeling strong, watching the world from above. blooms at night, showing us its colors full of life. Then the sun comes out and it hides to survive. Oh my god, what kind of alchemy is this? Moonflower. Where is moonflower? Wolf ears? Ingredient picked. Now what does this say? Red. This goes here. Big brain. Bat legs are mostly used for ghost summoning, immortality, and protection rituals. They hunt at night. Sleeping during the day, hunting at night, the wisest of them all to fill his appetite. This is not the best riddle. Clicking all night long to find his one true love. Clicking. Clicking must mean, cricket. Bada bang, bada boom. Now what could be green? Sleeping during the day, hunting at night. That's gonna be bat. Bat legs. Yummy, yummy. You telling me that's not right? Sleeping during the day. Bats do that. Hunting at night. Bats do that. Wisest of them all. Maybe owl? Owls hunt at night. Let's keep the cricket at blue. Yeah, I'm not so sure bats are wise. I guess owls could be wise.
Mr. Turtle, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
I never made it without biting. Ask Mr. Owl.
Mr. Owl, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
Let's find out. 1, 2, 3.
That's wise as shit, man. What kind of dumb shit? Clicking. The only thing that could click in this fucking crickets. Spiders don't click, they bark, believe it or not. I would know. Because I have an album about arachnids. Hopping around is definitely cricket. Cricket is blue without a fucking doubt. Let's try influx. Hell yeah. How big is this house? Fucking mansion. I need to be the reason of his death. That is the only way the real immortality ritual will work. After that, I will bum his head. What? Burn his head? That better say burn his head, and immortality will be mine. I can't do anything about that. Stupid. It worked. He summoned her with the fake rituals. I can... Bro. Okay, cool. I can still read it. Fuck you. Fake rituals I gave him, I can control. Hey! Mean. You shouldn't have a note in an area that you can be easily killed in. That's a big no-no for horror games. It's okay. I'll read it later. In post. Actually, fuck it. I got this. Finally, I will burn that fool's head, then I'll become immortal, yada yada yada. Not important. Fucking son of... bitch, don't do that. What? That fool really thinks that I would share immortality with him. Once I summon her and sacrifice him, I will become immortal. It sounds like this is nothing like the legend. As far as I've researched, it sounds like this is the developer's own twist, which is okay. It's okay. I don't want to touch that. Okay.
Alright, so let's get the major thing out of the way. I didn't really consider this a good horror game, but that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy playing it. I also know that since I am not a developer, I do not know the full depths of the difficulties of bringing a good horror game to the table. Even in the sense of writing, since I am working on my own novel, I gained a massive amount of respect for the novels out there that do it right. I think the best critics of a topic are those who know how it works firsthand, or are even potential competition as long as they're humble in their competitiveness. For writing, that shit is hard. Yeah, anyone can write, but not everyone can write efficiently and creatively put their ideas on paper in a way that works well. A lot of people who critique books have never written one themselves. A lot of people who review movies have never been involved in the cinema business and have nothing other than their YouTube career to bring to the table of the film industry. The same can be said with people analyzing the details of a horror game. Now, before I talk any shit about it, still, this game is on Steam for just $3 and was developed by and published by George Constantinou. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This is an indie horror game, obviously, with a playtime of about a half hour. I cut my footage down from about 32 minutes to roughly 19. I have also spent $3 on much worse things, so really this was a decent use of my money. As judgmental to the game itself as I can be, I did enjoy myself, and many people would say that's all that matters. But I also don't really celebrate mediocrity. That doesn't mean I'm snobby in my taste of art, it just means I have a taste of art. Right off the bat, though, I should mention that this game is supposed to have no connection to the legend of the spirit. I didn't know that until after I edited everything in my playthrough of it, so in my gameplay I kept questioning this and that about the folklore of the entity, but it turns out the developer just used the spirit because he felt like it. I actually don't like that at all. I've seen that done before, where people just inject some enemy from either a culture or a different game, and they completely abandoned everything that makes that character, well, that character. This most commonly happens in these lesser known underground indie horror games, and likely because it's easy to do, because it's a model of an entity that is understood and recognized. That means you don't have to create your own, but you fucking should, unless your game is following the lore of said entity or the story is somehow connected, in my opinion. This game also lacks a good color palette. The style of the flashlight, which as a flashlight it barely works, might I mention, but it makes everything a shade of violet. Color to me can mean a lot if it is intended to. Colors directly correlate psychologically to different emotions. Purple apparently makes people feel creative and is associated with mystery, royalty, and wealth. Lighter shades of purple are often used to soothe or calm a viewer, hence why it is used in beauty products. However, similar to the interpretation of dreams, I think a lot of people out there have different experienced emotions from colors. Some people might feel sadness or gloominess from blue, and others might feel hope from blue. But for the most part, there are real studies on this, albeit a sort of pseudoscience in some ways. There are more commonly associated emotions and color connections, meaning there is a very good reason that a lot of food products and drinks like Coca-Cola use bright red. Because while red portrays power, excitement, energy, and passion for the average person, it also stimulates the appetite. However, color-related emotions only work when they are truly intended to. Otherwise, well, if they work when unintended, then the mood of the viewer or player or whatever will not be what the developer had in mind. I'll tell you right now, I got kinda tired of everything being shades of purple. I think a good blend of colors is almost always a good idea if the creator of that thing knows what he's doing. Color plays a major part in movies too, and even books, meaning the way an author describes the scenery, technically with smells, feels, and sounds included, but in regards to how things look, the color makes a big difference. That's something I pay attention to in my own writing and when I read, or when engaging in any form of media entertainment like movies or games. Kuchisake-Onna the game felt very monochromatic and stale. I know that the feel of the color wasn't intended because, first of all, the game revolves around an entity that has now had its backstory stripped away from it, so I know damn well the developer isn't concerned about detail or essence in this. Things feel very empty in this game and just overall simple. I can poke fun at the water physics, but whatever, that's not really what I'm concerned about. What I'm concerned about is that nothing in this game felt original. I hate the argument that, oh well, nothing is original because everything is a product of its predecessor. Yeah, well that doesn't redeem the quality of a poor product, asshole. A lot of indie games have this structure where you need keys or some similar item to continue. That doesn't sound bad at first, but it gets old really quick, and it's been done since like the PlayStation 1 days. Sometimes it can work if it's smooth and the conflicts in the game obscure the absurdity of progressing through one item at a time, but having just keys for doors, that's lazy. Also, one small nitpick regarding having to wash a key. I have never heard of that being a thing ever. Like, maybe if you find a key that isn't yours, wash your hands, but a key is never going to be so dirty that you can't use it unless there's like obscenely huge clumps of crap on it. And this key was just sitting in this house, or mansion. I don't even know what kind of building it was supposed to be, but it's unlikely it was that filthy. One thing I do appreciate about this game is that there's no cheap jump scares. When I did get startled, it made sense because that threat would fucking chase me. That's infinitely better than a bump in the night, which this game did have random noises going off, but they were to build up tension and make you uncomfortable, not startle you. However, I can't get over the fact that the slit-mouthed woman doesn't even ask you her notorious question. It's literally just the embodiment of a malignant and hostile entity with the same look as Kuchisake-Onna. Nothing more. The story of this game was also just not good. The function of the notes didn't really make any sense, at least I didn't understand it. Perhaps I'm an idiot and I missed something very important, but I really tried to grasp what was going on, and for the most part everything felt shallow, unoriginal, and just kind of meh. However, sometimes that should be expected by indie games, not to mention this is the developer's only game on Steam, and it could have been a one-off fuck-around project. In any case, I love horror, and I'm glad I played this. Again, I should mention that one should take my criticism with a grain of salt because I am no game developer, but they should also see that doesn't always provide a free pass from judgment. I have played better horror games that were free. Yet, at the same time, there are probably 1,000 horror games out there that are upwards of $5 that are not as good of an experience as this one. The whole puzzle riddle sequence was eh. I can appreciate trying to have a game switch up styles to make it more immersive and more challenging. Some of my favorite games have puzzles, but this one also just felt a little half-assed. Or rather, it's probably just very inspired. Inspiration is good, but I encourage people to think for themselves and ultimately create for themselves, because there's not a single thing in this game that I haven't seen elsewhere. One last thing I'd like to say about this game is that I couldn't find any other games by George Constantino, so this one and only game by him on Steam is his one and only anywhere, at least to my knowledge as of now. So, being his first game, I assume that should also alleviate some of my seriousness. When I listen back to the first album I came out with as horrorcore hip-hop, I hate it. I like my newer stuff, but my earlier projects spawn nothing but shame nowadays. And so, what I'm saying is, I'll cut the developer of Kuchisake-Onna some slack because there is potential here, and maybe one day he makes another horror game that is an improvement from this first one. And nowadays, I'm so stuck in horror, I would still reinstall this game before I play Call of Duty Warzone with people. So that was fun and all, but we haven't gotten much deeper into the legend of Kuchisake-Onna. Sadly, this game didn't provide me with the perspective I was hoping for. Sorry if I wasted your time. This video is kind of structured as I go, with some loose planning and outlining, but I had higher hopes for how this game would turn out. Nevertheless, it's over with, and the next thing I want to look at should definitely reflect the story of the slit-mouthed woman with at least some respect for it.
Holly.
Carved, The Slit-Mouthed Woman is a Japanese horror film released in 2007. It was directed by Koji Shiraishi and written both by Koji and Nayuki Yokoi. I really hope I'm pronouncing those names correctly, but I'm probably not. This movie was decent. It wasn't something that scared me personally, but I'm sure it hits much harder for a Japanese audience, especially for those who either believe or knew people who believed in such a spirit. To Westerners, we kind of blow off all this stuff as ghosts, although some people still believe in ghosts despite the lack of evidence thereof.
Listen, I stayed at the Bigsby house.
I brushed my goddamn teeth right next to the tub where Sir David Smith drowned his whole family, and I stopped being afraid of vampires when I was 12. Do you know why I can stay in your spooky old room, Mr. Olin? Because I know that ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties don't exist.
A lot of Westerners also believe in cryptids or other similar supernatural or paranormal entities. When you really boil it down, belief in any spirit like the slit-mouthed woman isn't much different than any religious belief or sacred cultural tradition. So I better not see any Christians, Jews, Buddhists, Satanists, or people of whatever religion childishly mocking this legend in the comments. I don't believe in it, but legends are legends, and there are some legends that I am skeptical about, so I at least try to stay respectful to the idea that people can believe in what they want. This movie felt like a slasher flick, but more modern. I say modern even though it was 2007, because when I think of slasher, I imagine late 70s, all of the 80s, and early 90s era of hack and slash, Texas Chainsaw, Halloween, Friday the 13th shit. With those movies, given their outdated nature, I see the flaws pretty clearly. Exaggerated expressions, bitch trips over grass in an empty field when being chased, the list of slasher cliches goes on and on and on. This movie reminds me of that only in the sense that it's a supernatural being with an iconic piece of cutlery terrorizing people. Although I do take it slightly more serious than the average slasher just because it's so grimy and dark, and it never goes way over the top but does dip its toes into some shit that would not fly easily in an American cinema today. That is the killing of kids. Not teenagers, kids. The majority of Kuchisake-Onna's victims in this movie are children. Only a few get their faces carved up and the rest are killed in other ways. The only American movie I can think of off the top of my head that has a scene of a child getting murdered gruesomely is Dr. Sleep, the sequel to The Shining. I know there's plenty more out there that I just don't know, but that's the only one that I do know of. And of course, that didn't turn me away. I'm just giving a warning for those who want to watch the movie but have a weak stomach. I actually found this movie for free on YouTube, but only at 360p, so to make this video with better quality, I was able to rent it digitally from Vudu. Now, this movie changes things up, but in a good way, I think. There were some parts that were confusing and felt like it was going in too many directions at once, but the origin of the slit-mouthed woman is changed in a respectfully clever way. Typically, as you know by now, she's supposed to ask potential victims, "Am I pretty?" and you know the rest. However, in Carved, it turns out she's saying aim for the neck. See, in the film, Kuchisake-Onna is the mother of one of the main characters, Noboru Matsuzaki. This film has a lot to say about child abuse too, so this is a warning for that as well. Noboru was abused relentlessly by his mother, who was absolutely crazy, or perhaps possessed by the spirit of Kuchisake-Onna. That much isn't really made clear. The mother kills Noboru's sister and his brother, and soon tries to kill Noboru. But for an instant, she snaps to her regular self and gives Noboru a kitchen knife, asking him to kill her before she kills him. Specifically, she says to cut off her head because supposedly that is the only way that the slit-mouthed woman can be killed. She tells Noboru, aim for the neck. But soon after, she goes maniacal, and in the struggle, Noboru slices her face, giving her the mutilated scar of the slit-mouthed woman before Noboru stabs her in the stomach. However, he never cuts off her head in this moment, which is why later, when Noboru is an adult, she comes back. And as a child, after cutting her face, he just closed her up in some sort of closet or wardrobe and left. Given the amount of trauma packed as a cherry on top of a mountain of child abuse, a lot of repressed memories exist, because that's one way our brains survive. If we can't bear to think about it, our minds will sometimes convince itself that it never happened. So, jumping to the future, or rather the present now, there are child abductions happening because Kuchisake-Onna has returned from the dead. Noboru, as an adult, is able to hear the voice of his mother asking, "Am I pretty?" which apparently these voices are heard around the time that an abduction or killing is happening. And these voices have location. They aren't just in his skull. They sound like they're coming from a specific direction, and the closer he gets, the louder they get until he arrives at the scene, which I think is pretty fucking cool. Noboru as an adult has blurry memories of his childhood, and that's why he thinks she is asking, "Am I pretty?" But after digging deep within himself, through all the trauma, he remembers that she's saying aim for the neck. I think that's pretty cool, but it is a big change. Nobody else can hear the slit-mouthed woman's questions either, only Noboru. But plenty of rumors about the slit-mouthed woman are spread and gossiped around the school districts. So let's rewind just a little. The children in school are the ones who somehow know about the slit-mouthed woman, perhaps just passed down in generations, considering the father of one of the kids says he heard the same rumor when he was in school. To zoom out of the movie for a second, we know that there are multiple similar versions for the backstory of Kuchisake-Onna, but it appears that the earliest mentions of Kuchisake-Onna on paper come from around 1979. That's pretty recent for a spirit to be invented, I guess. I mean, Bigfoot was first thought of around 1958, so this is even younger than that. However, that's just what is found in print. Some scholars and folklorists say that this legend technically dates all the way back to the Edo period of Japan, also known as the Tokugawa period, which was between 1603 and 1876. This would make sense regarding the connection of the samurai story of the slit-mouthed woman. However, for this movie's sake, we can assume that the legend was started around 1979 and perhaps is simply linked to the same older spirit. Stories are frequently retold, retranslated, reformed, and so on. This is the case for not just mythical creatures and entities, but also entire religions. But one thing this movie pays attention to is this more recent 1979 lore. In reality, this slit-mouthed woman as a legend spread straight up hysteria among children who believed in it. It was so bad that nobody was allowed to walk home alone, and students were constantly accompanied by parent-teacher associate groups. This is very much part of the movie, and I appreciate that they integrated this into it. Yet, as should be expected, the director and writers of this film wanted to add their own twist to it. Already, the origin has been altered, whereas instead of being mutilated by her husband as a punishment for adultery, she was mutilated by her son in self-defense. Furthermore, the slit-mouthed woman as a spirit can somehow possess the shape of a different mother. When this first happens, the main character, a teacher named Mrs. Yamashita, saves Noboru by stabbing the slit-mouthed woman over and over in the side. But after a while, it gets revealed that the person they killed was some random mother who was sick and had a mask. It's not like these characters were just seeing things, it's more like the mother's body was hijacked and used as a vessel for evil that also made them look like the slit-mouthed woman. But that gets a little bit confusing and is never really explained as to why that happens, because near the end, that happens again, but doesn't seem to add up. Now, one element of this that I do like though, is that a lot of people in Japan wear surgical masks because of the air pollution. You can clearly see in these city shots in the beginning of the film how hazy it is, and personally, this type of air pollution has always radiated with an aura of dystopia to me, and I find it just oddly fascinating. Thick smog that obscures and blurs the distant buildings just adds a layer to this movie, not just because it looks cool to my privileged Western eyes, but because I think it correlates to the coughing in this movie. This mother caught a cold and was coughing pretty bad. Later, she's the one that ends up being killed because she was possessed by the slit-mouthed woman. Although this possession is very confusing because it's as if at first it really is Kuchisake-Onna, and only when she's been killed does she leave that body and that corpse turns into someone else. That is one hell of a concept, although it doesn't really work. But anyway, back to the coughing thing. In Noboru's flashbacks to his childhood, we see his mother, the soon-to-be slit-mouthed woman, also coughing before she loses her cool. Now, I don't think that there's a clear connection, historically speaking, between coughing and spiritual possession, but I could be wrong. The one thing that comes to mind, though, is the air pollution and how many people, not just in Japan but in many Asian countries, wear surgical masks to protect from the pollution. In America, it was never the norm until COVID-19, but in places like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Japan, China, and others, people have kind of always worn masks dating back well before 1979. We're talking ever since major cities there had severe pollution, or rather, ever since those masks were easily accessible. So that could add to the origin of this legend, maybe a gruesome murder with scissors happened and it just so happens that they were wearing a mask, who knows. But in Carved, some of the children end up picking on a girl named Mika because she's wearing a mask. They tease her and suggest that she's the one who's been kidnapping people, basically just bullying her. They pressure her into taking her mask off, but what they see under are bruises from her mother's physical abuse. So now we circle back to the abuse theme. Eventually, the main character, Mrs. Yamashita, is walking Mika home. At this point, Mika opens up to her and tells her the truth that she hates her mother and shows her the bruises all over her body. Now, Miss Yamashita is a mother herself and tries to tell the kid not to ever say that she hates her mother and that the abuse she experienced was just love gone too far. That's bullshit. I'll tell you right now, I was never physically abused, but there's more than one person in my family that I fucking despise. In fact, I think since Miss Yamashita herself abused her daughter, she only told Mika this in a pathetic attempt to try to justify her own actions. Soon afterward, the slit-mouthed woman actually abducts Mika right in front of the teacher, and the teacher is too awestruck and shocked to fight back, so Mika gets taken. Miss Yamashita is a very brave character though, and truly risks her life to save Mika, who isn't even her own child, and by the end of this movie she mentally fixes herself and realizes that abuse is not the answer. But the plot twist at the end is that now Miss Yamashita is possessed and turns into the slit-mouthed woman, presumably killing her own child. Like, what? But let's back it up a second. Why did she get possessed? Well, Miss Yamashita and Noboru go to the house that Noboru grew up in because student rumors say that this is the house that is the lair of Kuchisake-Onna. So these two teachers team up to hopefully find Mika there. They do find Mika, but Noboru also finds his siblings who have been dead in his hidden cellar for decades. Also, the mother of Mika drove over to that same house after hearing the rumor from a kid, and she gets there a little after Noboru and Yamashita. At this point in time, the slit-mouthed woman had also appeared. She brutally cuts up Noboru and knocks Yamashita unconscious. Mika's mother finds Yamashita and she wakes up. The following scenes are very confusing though. Mika's mother dies. And Noboru dies, but Yamashita and Mika make it out. Before Noboru died, he cuts off his mother's head as he was instructed to do so, but she doesn't really die. Her body transforms into the corpse of Mika's mother. That's why the spirit lives on and hijacks Yamashita at the end, prompting her to murder her own child. So this movie, like I said, has a lot of child violence, which I'm not even sure I can get away with on YouTube, but that's why I age restricted this video. All in all, I enjoyed this movie. It kept many of the folklore elements alive and added some nice additions to it, unlike the first game that I played. But this movie isn't without its own flaws. Some of the acting is kind of bad in my opinion. You know, a lot of Westerners like foreign films because they can't spot bad acting as easily because they don't speak the language. I don't know Japanese, but I could still tell when some moments of facial expression or just the delivery of lines was out of place or odd or just not that good. Also, the whole changing body thing did not resonate well with me. I think it sounds cool on paper, but was not executed well in this movie. I still enjoyed the watch though. It didn't scare me, but I was surprised at the brutality and relentlessness of this film. It holds back no punches, which I like seeing in a movie. But I'm also very sick. One of my favorite Japanese movies is Ichi the Killer. Ichi the Killer has a strange structure and is very grotesque, ridiculously dark, and not for everyone. It was right up my alley though, and coincidentally, Ichi the Killer also has plenty of shots of polluted city to further back up what I was saying. I mean, you can just look it up. Japan is pretty polluted, but if you don't believe me, look at these scenes from Ichi the Killer that were shot between 2000 and 2001. Also, the main character in that movie, Kakahara, has split his mouth. He's an extreme masochist and his jaw is held together by metal clamps. Here's what he looks like when he removes those. Very similar to Kuchisake-Onna, but obviously not connected, it just reminded me of it. Furthermore, this isn't the first time we've seen a character who is famous for their carved mouth. The most notorious I can think of in Western media is the Joker, the arch-nemesis of Batman. Technically, this is now a TV trope, commonly called the Glasgow grin, which overlaps into anybody with a stitched shut smile or just exaggerated smile from scars. There's the horror comedy manga Frankenfran, which I hope is how you say that. This character clearly has the same trope. I think this type of Cheshire Cat grin is mostly associated with an antagonist or any dark character that is perhaps insane or simply evil, but not necessarily always. Heinkill from Helsing suffers a mouth wound, specifically a sniper round, and ends up looking like this. What about that Titan from Attack on Titan with the abnormally large smiling mouth? Or Carousil, a villain of Green Lantern who cuts off her lips and sharpens her teeth into fangs so she could look more like the large beasts that adopted her, giving her a permanent predatory grin. Or from the movie Mad Max Fury Road, we have the character simply named Slit. This type of trope can go on and on, given what an ominous smile really resembles. Further than that, a smile that is permanently carved. I wouldn't put the new movie called Smile in this category because, well, you'll have to watch it to understand. It's just not the same thing. But I do absolutely love that movie nonetheless. But now that I have talked about the legend, its history, I have covered a game that includes it, and the most popular movie about it, it's time to move into a second horror game about Kuchisake-Onna. I looked a little bit into this beforehand, and I can assure you it's a much better game than the first one that I played. It also actually respects the legend and doesn't just use it as an empty husk of malignance. This is also the only other game out there that I could find about the slit-mouthed woman. There was one I found on Itch.io, but it's in very early development and wasn't worth going over. It's not in a playable state. This, on the other hand, is awesome. Let's dive into Slit-Mouthed.
This is a very calming menu sequence. While it doesn't really give me the horror mood, I think this is a big step up from the first game, for sure. While it doesn't really scream the word horror for me, at the same time I like it because after watching Carved, there's a lot of like somber moods in Carved, not just with the abuse, but the overall mood is kind of gloomy underneath all the horror. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into this. Koda Kazuki, a famous author in Japan, was found dead in the basement of his mansion. People close to him stated that he was going crazy and that he was getting obsessed with Japanese urban legends. He studied them to seek inspiration for a new book, but he couldn't stop reading and learned more about these myths. He was losing his mind. He said multiple times that she will get him. Apparently, the famous author was found dead and his mouth was slit open from one ear to another with all the crazy notes around his home. The police labeled the case as suicide. A lot of people thought it was the demon, Kuchisake-Onna, who killed Koda Kazuki. The uncanny similarities with the urban legend did not go unnoticed. Strangely enough, that mansion is now considered a piece of art, since it shows what was going through the head of a great author once he went mad. It is full of unfinished books and creepy notes. Some say that there are secret rooms in the mansion. His family decided to auction the mansion. Until that day arrives, it will be protected by a private security company to ensure that no fan is going to intrude and potentially steal some of Koda Kazuki's work. That's interesting. I like that premise. That's a really good idea. Boss. Akio, it's your turn to work the Kazuki mansion tonight. Am I Akio? Akio? I must be. What? Come on, boss. You know that I'm a bit superstitious. Don't make me work at that place. Akio, stop acting like a child. You won't be alone there anyways. It's a double shift. Seiji is working the night shift with you. Are you sure that you don't want me anywhere else tonight? Akio, we're getting paid a lot of money to sit in a big mansion every night. Stop complaining and do your job. Oh, and make sure you don't touch anything. We are instructed to keep the place as it is until it gets sold. Apparently the messy house of a nut job is considered art these days. Okay, I'm on my way.
マンションなんかホテルというか宮殿みたいなもんじゃないか。タスクリストを確認してみるか。
Alright, I'm excited.
ああ、戸田明夫だよね。今夜一緒に仕事をする坂東誠二だ。俺はもう地下でタスクリストに取り掛かってるぞ。
Task list. Alright.
やあ誠治、今夜も一緒に仕事できてよかったよ。今からチェックリストに戻るぞ。
この場所の噂聞いたことあるか。幸田さんのメモを見ると何もかもが不気味だぞ。
聞いたことはあるけど怖いもんだから考えないようにしてる。
Pussy.
ああ、大丈夫だよ。妖怪とか幽霊とかそんなものは実在しないから。
大丈夫だよ。パニックになったりはしないから。恐怖に対処する方法を知ってるんだ。
Masturbation.
ん？何するんだ？
歌うんだ。
I was close.
はは、くだらね。
I don't know how to sing. I refuse to sing in the middle of this game. Sorry for anybody who wanted me to sing. Not gonna happen. Can I view those tasks again? I wasn't really paying attention. You could jump in Kuchisake-Onna, but you couldn't zoom. And in this game you can zoom, but you can't jump. I also don't have a flashlight. And apparently I can't sprint. This is the door to the basement. Seiji is there. Sure he is. There's gotta be a quicker way to fucking walk. Ah, okay, task list. Windows. Check if every window is locked. There are 5 windows. Locked roof. Check if the chain that locks the roof door is still locked. Hello? Kuchisake-Onna, your story touched me. Just like the Greek Medusa, you are misunderstood. My stories, my books, are nothing compared to your story. Nice, fine china. Misunderstood added to documents. So is that journal? Ah, so I can go back and read those. That's convenient. Cool. Nice mansion you got here.
開けられないな。
Why not? How do I check if these windows are locked? What is this? A syringe full of healthy stuff? Alright, what kind of healthy stuff? I'm assuming that's just how I heal myself, like a first aid kit. It's just a fucking syringe of blended broccoli. Chain checked. Cool, it's locked. So, every window is locked. It's my next task. Can I not close these doors? Thank you.
開けられないな。鍵のかかったドアがあるけど、これ普通のことなのか？開けるべきか？
俺たちの仕事はあの場所をそのまま保存することだ。チェックリストを見て侵入者がいないかどうか確認する。だからドアを開けたり、最古な奴がデザインしたものに触れちゃいかんぞ。
Okay.
デザインってどういうこと？
知らないのか？噂だと、あの家は最古な奴が自分でデザインしたもので、秘密の部屋や罠がたくさんあるらしいんだ。まあ、そんなことは信じてないがな。一応気をつけておけ。
Okay, fine. Let's try this door up here. Ooh, an open door. That's the first. I like that painting. That's a cool painting. Dude, I've got to have a flashlight. Right?
Mado, チェック完了。
Alright. Is there a point to checking all this stuff? I mean, I like that you can interact. That's cool. There's probably some sort of like collectible thing. Otherwise, I was right. So I don't know what I just grabbed, but collectible 1 of 5. I don't think I'll be able to find all 5, but if I do, that's a plus, right? I like the paintings in this house. This author has good taste in art. Nothing. Check this window.
窓、チェック完了。
He makes it like such a serious matter. I mean, it's his job, I get that, but it's not a matter of life and death. Yet.
タスクはもう終わったか？こっちはこっちで行動してるが、照明が落ちてて大変なんだ。
No, we don't. Where's mine at, motherfucker?
ああ、ほとんど終わったぞ。
Dude, how do I get... How? Ta-da! I figured it out. I forgot that F is usually the flashlight button. It's been a minute since I played a game like this. I mean, that first game does not count. However, there's no sprint in this game. I bet that I, like, unlock the sprint option once Mrs. Slit-mouthed becomes active. Can I just leave the house? Okay. Oh, I love this painting. Or this design. It's very famous. What the hell is this room? I saw her again in my dreams, but it felt so real. Uh-huh. Sure. 2 out of 5 collectibles.
この窓は大丈夫。
Yeah, the window is okay.
この窓も大丈夫だな。
I know. Very quiet. But I'm not gonna make the same mistake that I made in the first game, and I'm not gonna wish some fucking creepy atmosphere upon myself. My footsteps for now will do for ambient noise.
鍵がかかってるぞ。
Shut up. There was this gorgeous woman. Every male in town wanted her. The tales of her beauty were told all around Japan. She was aware of it, and she enjoyed the attention. She belonged to a warlord, a very jealous warlord. When he was out of town, she would approach other men, asking them one simple question. Hey, am I beautiful? The answer was always the same. Yes, you are gorgeous. One time the warlord returned early. He witnessed his beautiful wife kissing another man. As punishment for her infidelity, her husband sliced the corners of her mouth from ear to ear. Cool, so this developer did his fucking homework. Any other cool shit in here?
鍵がかかってるぞ。
I figured.
開けられないな。
Man, I can play the music. Do I want to, though? Oh, I need a music disc. Where the fuck would a music disc be? Probably on some kind of shelf, I'm assuming. I gotta check the window. That's what I didn't do. Duh. Fucking, I'm a moron.
窓、チェック完了。
Cool. Yeah, we're done. Now I can leave, hopefully. I know I can't though. No way in hell. See, there's no more tasks. So, what? Do I go check on my homie? I don't know what to do here. I don't like that. Hello. How you doing? Oh no, she's having a seizure. Quick, I'll save you.
誰だ誰なんだ
あなたは私をしている。
なんだって
Yes, you are shit.
教えてください。私は綺麗ですか
Nope. Well, if I say no, I'm gonna die right now, so.
Akio! Oi!
I'm gonna wake up with
もしもし聞こえるか
big slices in my face.
いるかアキオおい、どうしたんだよなんで返事しないんだ
見たんだ女を見たんだそして質問してきたんだ
何を言ってるんだ停電があって発電機の調子がさらに悪くなったみたいで電気がつかないんだよ
お前は分かってないんだ俺はあの女を見たし話したんだあれは口裂け女だ
なんだって侵入者の可能性があるからこっちに来て発電機を直すのを手伝ってくれその女のことは後回しだ
Yeah, now I can sprint. I figured that's how that would work. And here's the music disc. I'm gonna go play this in the player. Oh, and now the ambient is here. Cool. I think it was over here. No, it was not. I have brain damage. Oh, I see my stamina meter in the bottom right.
鍵がかかってるぞ
This game actually has a real meter, unlike the first game. Should I be doing this? Ah, I should be. This is my jam. Okay, he said to go down here and check on him. So let's do
な
that.
政治地下室のドアの鍵かかってるから開けてくれないかもしもし政治聞こえるか
Find a way into
開け
the
られないな
basement. Oh, fuck that. Fuck all of you. If I touch you, do I die? Or okay, cool. I can just walk right past you and nothing bad will ever happen. Right? Right. I'm closing this. You can suck a fart. I'm not dealing with that shit. More of you. It's like a KKK meeting in here. A murder took place in a family's home. One family member was killed by another family member. It was a family of 4, father, mother, son, daughter. One family member witnessed the murder. Another family member helped the murderer. Facts. The family member that witnessed the murder and the family member that helped the murderer are not the same gender. Oh. See, this is a real riddle. Fuck. The oldest member of the family and the witness are not the same gender. The youngest member of the family and the victim are not the same gender. The family member that helped the murderer is older than the victim. There's a lot of layers to this shit. Oh no. The father is the oldest family member. The youngest family member is not the killer. Which family member was the murderer? how do I know? What? How do I choose? What if I... This is the father. Oh. Oh, no. No? Question mark? I'm gonna pick son. Okay, if I'm wrong, do I die? Yes. Fuck. So it's not the son. It's the mother. Okay. Got it the second time. Cool. You can unlock a door with it. This is probably the basement door. And they're all gone. Said tip running makes more noise. This place looks fucked.
Seiji? 俺はここにいるぞ。どうしたんだ？
まったくドアがロックされて出られなくなったか。奇妙なことが起こってるな。無線機も機能しないし修理するか。
だって言ったじゃないか。悪いが俺はもうここにはいられない。
やだ、助けてください。僕もここを出なきゃいけないんです。
わかった。
How do I help him get out? This way, perhaps?
開けられないな。
Fuck. Upstairs, behind the head. What? You fuck off with that shit, man. No. No. I say no to that shit, man. You bitch, you're gonna be right behind there. I just know it. Don't you dare. I think she's like right behind there. You can unlock a door with it. Great. A useful tool. Indeed. Very useful. How do I use this shit? Can I take it out like right now? Equipped, maybe? No? That's sad. You bastard. See, right then and there, axe to the forehead, instantly. That's what I would have done.
バキオ、無線を直したぞ。歩いてるのが聞こえるが、鍵を探してるのか。
I'm upstairs, dog.
何を言ってるんだ？俺は2階にいて、今鍵を取ったところだぞ。
Yeah, you don't hear me, you hear her.
また、誰かが聞こえるぞ。地下を歩く音だ。早くこっちに来て、助けてくれ。
Alright, I'll come save your bitch ass. Like the manly, awesome hero that I am. Also, my health went down from getting that puzzle wrong. I won't use my heroin needle just yet. I gotta wait until I get damaged one more time, probably. That might be the most efficient use. Ugh, I don't want to go back into the basement. What the fucking hell? Quick, heroin, use it. Where the fuck did she come from? Go this way then. Slimy fucking woman. How do I get in here? I thought I got it. It's for this door. Right. She is here. This is not a dream. I hear the whispers, the footsteps. She is coming for me. What will my answer be? Yes? No? What if you said maybe? Like perhaps. Slimy person with superhuman strength, apparently. Oh, my character's singing. Akio is singing. Fun stuff. Oh, tight. One more to go. Hello. Do you have anything useful on your mutilated body that I could, well, use? Alright. Can't I just leave now? I should be able to waltz right on out of here, dude. I should be able to just leave. Can I use the axe on this? Is that what this is for? What? Come on. Really? Also, I could jump this. I could walk over that. What the hell? Oh. It was here the whole fucking time? All the doors are locked. My last chance is the roof. I need to get to the roof and use the fire escape if I want to get out of here. Alright. No, yes. I found it. There is a way to stay alive. If my theory is true, attacking her with blood of her victim should send her back to hell. But it is impossible. Where could I find blood of her victim? I have no time. I am doomed. Maybe I can go chop up my homie with the axe. Is that what I'm supposed to do? Pretty gruesome. I like it. Dude, my flashlight is getting weaker and weaker each time I come down here. Not a good sign. Excuse yourself? This axe will go straight up your ass. I am not kidding. Ah! I don't know what to do, man. I tried. Oh my god. That's fucking dumb. I do not like that mechanic. First of all, the sprint is like so pitiful. Look at this. That's sprint. This is sprint. Am I 9,000 pounds? Am I a fucking sumo wrestler? And I need to use the blood of her victim. I assume that means, you know, dip my axe in and out of Seiji's back on some Dark Lotus shit.
So I pass the axe to Mad Rock. I took the axe, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? It's all bloody and it looks like it's been in and out of someone's back. Gristle on the handle, blood dripping down the neck, so I grabbed that bitch like, who wanna get halved up?
You're ugly and gross. You smell bad. You have hairy fucking legs. She's still like right over there. Nope, 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 nope. Haha. She can't open this door. How do I beat her? Other than with my fists and very aggressively. I'm doing what's called a pro gamer move. Oh, there's no animation or anything? I wanted to see some dismemberment. I can't quite see. Oh no. Don't come in here. Don't come in here. Can you go back in that room, please? That sounds close. Oh my god. You suck so much. You suck so much. Dumb bitch. I'm out. Watch, can also be in here too. Magically teleports in this fucking area like she did in the first game. What? What fucking key do I have? Ah. The goblins really like the painting. Those are cool. Which painting? That painting? If this is what I think it is, all red should be on the bottom. Green in the middle with a blue line for the, well, green middle and hold on, let me try this. Put you there and you there and I thought for sure that that would be it. That makes like a lot of sense. Something here ain't adding up. Can I just pull out this sword and kill myself as, you know, a second option? They like the painting, but this is the first painting that I actually fucking don't like at all. Doesn't make any sense. What if I just... No. No. First of all, that's retarded. That puzzle made no sense. I don't know what's going on. I can't interact with this. Oh, it's one of those games. One of those sequences. Here's the bolt cutters. I've seen that done a few times, but it's okay. I do not like that puzzle. I was trying to think that it was so much different, because it's so much simple now, because you know, the blue for the sky, the green for the grass, the red. I was trying to take the river into account, but it has nothing to do with that, because I overanalyzed it like a fucking dumbass. Go to the roof? Are you sure? What if I do no? Oh, it doesn't matter. Okay. Interesting. Oh, come on, I'm right there. I guess I go this way, the only way to go in this maze. Yes, squeeze through. According to popular legend, after her death, the woman returned as a vengeful spirit, right? She asks potential victims if they think she is beautiful. If they respond with no, she will kill them with her long scissors. If they say yes, she will reveal that the corners of her mouth are slit from ear to ear, and she will then repeat her question. If the individual responds with no, she will kill them with her weapon, and if they say yes, she will cut the corners of their mouth in such a way that resembles her own disfigurement. Cool. I need to use this drug right now. Fucking use it. Man, why is my flashlight like low battery on the roof and in the basement? You suck. This is really dumb because I could crawl into that. I do not like when games do that. The bullshit barrier. These are some narrow passageways. That got me a little bit. Okay, cool. Good one. Good joke, pal. Oh no. Oh shit, I don't have shit. Can't do that yet. I gotta go over there, don't I? Oh! Sprint! What are you doing? That scared the shit out of me, dude. Not cool. I got all 5 collectibles though, so who's really laughing? Huh? Oh my god. She is infinitely scarier than in the first game. Yes. Okay. I'm not sure where this key leads to though. I think over there. Right? Yes. Awesome. She gone? Hello? Do Is this the end? Ah, fuck you. Am I pretty now? Of course you're beautiful. You're the slut-mouthed woman. Slit-mouthed woman. After many failed attempts to communicate with the security personnel, police was sent to investigate what happened at the Kazuki mansion. They found the dead body of Bando Seiji and the unconscious Toda Akio. They were just in time to save his life. His mouth was slit open from ear to ear. Toda Akio is now hospitalized and still unconscious. His doctor is unsure if he'll become conscious again. Only time will tell. In the meantime, locals from that area are terrified, fearing that the demon Kuchisake-Onna is near. They are trying to destroy the mansion once and for all. I like that. That was nice. Fucking freaky deaky motherfucker. Fuck you. Have a seizure. Get juked, bitch. It wouldn't fucking open. That's retarded. That's retarded. And now it's open, of course, when I'm far away from it. Don't know why it was not opening. It was like, I must have been spamming it. But I could have just walked through. Oh my god. Let's try this. After many failed attempts to communicate with the security personnel, police was sent to investigate what happened at the Kazuki mansion. They found Bando Seiji, one of the two security guards working at the mansion that night, dead. He was stabbed more than 4 times and had multiple broken bones. They also found Toda Aiko unconscious with a bloody axe next to him. Does this writer know what periods are? This is like one sentence. He was taken in for questioning and he claimed that the demon Kuchisake-Onna attacked them. The police obviously didn't buy his story, and he was treated as the main suspect. Luckily for him, the autopsy showed that the wounds on Bando Seiji's body couldn't come from an axe. Therefore, he was released due to insufficient evidence. I think it could have been done a little better. Look at this, big surprise. Developed by George Constantinou and Nick Chiari. Hell nah. I don't fight back at all, I just get stabbed in the head 3 times. Alright. After many failed attempts, yeah, I've read this. Basically, it's the same writing with a little bit of difference, just slightly changed each time. Although the police investigates the case as a potential robbery homicide, the locals fear the supernatural, assuming that this incident has something to do with the death of Kazuki, the author, and the demon, Kuchisake-Onna. There's supposed to be 3 dots there. Dot, not dot.
Alright, so I have a lot to say about this game. To start off with, I made a fool of myself by saying that George Constantinou only created the first game. Apparently, in the credits of Slit Mouth, he is mentioned alongside Nick Chiari. On Steam, the developer is recognized as Nick's Tales, which might mean that Nick's Tales is the duo of both Nick and George. But the reason I didn't think George had any other creations is because, at least under his name, he actually doesn't. He made the first game, Kuchisake-Onna, and then was credited credited for this second game, which was a huge step up from the first. I don't know what percentage of work he put into this game, nor Nick Chiari, but if I'm being honest, Kuchisake-Onna was not a good game at all compared to Slit Mouth, so I assume Nick was calling most of the shots for this. Or, as I mentioned before, it is possible that George used some of the potential that I said I saw in him and actually did learn from his mistakes. Nevertheless, I enjoyed this game, so while I am about to say a lot of negative things about it, please keep in mind that not only did I enjoy this game, but I enjoyed the 40-minute edited nightmare of all those subtitles too. Strenuous work, but satisfactory results. That's how each chunk of this video is turning out, honestly. Anyways, this game has quite a few issues. One thing I pointed out more than once while playing was lazy barriers. The gate by the bolt cutters and the gate that requires 2 spinning hand statues. In a realistic situation, one could easily squeeze by these things, but one must keep in mind this is nothing new for games. Not just horror games, but games in general, so as annoying as it is for me to see, I'll cut them slack for that. On the other hand, the plot structure is very weak. Remember when I was discussing the first game, I felt that hunting key after key to open one room after another was drawn out and boring? Well, this game still does that exact thing, only some of the other elements of the game make it a tad bit more bearable. I want a game where if a door is locked and you wield a fucking axe, you can chop through it. When a drawer is locked, you can break the furniture to get to what's inside. When a window is locked, you can break it to leave. But my feeling with this meets some complications with this game. See, the idea for the setting has a really clever sort of back door for the plot. What that means is, because of the situation, they can get away with cheesing a handful of stuff because it can fit the narrative. I want to call that good writing because in a way it really is, but I think even better writing would include key moments in the game where some event would occur for whatever reason to delay my success or prolong my escape, not a back door. In this game, you're a security guard on a double shift. The other guy, Seiji, checks the basement first while you check the first 2 floors for locked doors and windows. Apparently, this entire house was built by the famous author who lives in it. Now, I should say right there that that is super unlikely. How many prolific authors are also skilled architects who live in their own creation? The answer is very fucking few. Nonetheless, this author, who presumably killed himself and went crazy, designed his house with some hidden rooms and extra weird crap. This is where the backdoor concept comes in, since the entire setting of this game takes place in a mansion designed by a paranoid famous author who is probably also very creative because of that. Then some of the plot points that seem wacky or odd or out of place suddenly make sense. The illogical becomes logical, having to go from top floor to bottom floor to basement to top floor, searching hidden areas, finding a set of keys that opens another area where in that area is a puzzle that leads to another hidden area where you find clues of where to go next. Your experience is very scattered and unorganized and a bit ridiculous, but that kind of makes sense to me given the state of mind of the person who designed the house and who wrote all the clues and notes for you. To add to this, since the entire place is considered art, you'd probably get fired for breaking any doors open or windows or anything, and if you did to escape and told the authorities it was to evade an evil spirit, they would call you insane, just like the author Kazuki, who they think killed himself. In fact, they'd probably think that you were the one who killed Seiji. So that's why you can't really just walk on out of the front door or force your way out when it's locked. In the beginning, your boss gives you and Seiji the assignments and gives you the walkie-talkies, which means you get to communicate with Seiji, but the boss is still outside. Who knows if he even stayed at the mansion waiting outdoors? It's likely he just left, actually. On the Steam bio for this game, they claim that Kuchisake-Onna has a very intelligent AI. One person pointed out, and this is true, that the AI is not very intelligent at all. She walks a predictable path, and I also found that sprinting didn't make a lot of noise after all. Where I got screwed was stepping into her line of sight, which is perfectly fine. I didn't mind the AI, it's much better than the first one, but yes, it is predictable. That's how I was able to leave the basement fairly easily by just slowly following her while she was walking her scripted path. Another thing, the Japanese voice acting to me sounds pretty good, although the endings, written in English of course, are not very well written. I wonder if English is even the developer's first language? Who knows? But the voice acting was alright. As for the ending, somebody mentioned this as well, there aren't really 3 different endings. It felt like 1.2 endings because the only thing that really changes is the final writing segment after the final question is asked. You can say yes, no, or use item and hack her up with the axe, and might I add that the animations in this ending part are not the best, but hear me out, I'm nitpicking. I have to provide both negative and positive feedback. I don't like ripping on something just for the sake of ripping on it, and I don't like praising something just to praise it either. One thing this game had going well though was the graphics. It was a little too dark until my idiot self learned how to use the flashlight, but the Unreal Engine did this game justice compared to the first game. I've said that a lot, that Slit Mouth is many levels above the first Kuchisake-Onna game for a variety of reasons, although Slit Mouth on Steam is $4.99, so slightly heavier price, slightly better product. That's how shit works usually. And as I said before, I am a horror junkie basically, so I'd much rather play this and pay to support the developer team in doing so than play some non-horror game in any case. This game, obviously as you know, followed the legend of Kuchisake-Onna much more closely than the first game. The first game didn't even acknowledge it, but here we have clear evidence that some research was done. I have seen in the reviews for this game that some people complain that Kuchisake-Onna looks more modern instead of something more like an ancient evil, particularly from the Japanese Edo period. To that I'd say, well, there's multiple versions of the story, hence technically all versions are correct and simultaneously all versions are incorrect. The way legends and stories like this work is pretty interesting. After I read Man and His Symbols, which is written by multiple people but most notoriously Carl Jung, I learned a lot about how legends and myths and, well, stories like this are told. There are a ton of parallels across religions, common traits in the heroes and in the villains. Compare Christianity to ancient Egyptian mythology, go down a rabbit hole, and you'll realize how many Christian stories appear to be ripoffs of Egyptian stories. I have only read a few books in the Bible. I also read the Tibetan Book of the Dead though, and I've read a pretty big book on Hindu mythology and plenty of pagan mythology. I really like studying culture and religion, although I haven't dived deep into Japanese beliefs or Shinto or any of that quite yet, but I am very familiar with Buddhist ideas. Anyways, when you look at all this stuff, you realize multiple different stories often say the same thing, or have the same message, or are talking about the same person or entity or concept, just in different perspectives. Where I'm going with this is, some people claim that the slit-mouthed woman traces back to an entity in the Edo period, but with the new modern version, if it traces back to that older ancestor story, it can still work. It's the same idea of the spirit. I wouldn't know if ghosts wear clothes, but I'd imagine they wouldn't be stuck in the clothing they died in for eternity. But who knows? I'm just saying things like this change shape all the time. Not just that, but who's to say that a modern ghost can't be the same ghost as the ancient story goes? If such a fear-mongering, if you will, was passed down generation to generation, for each generation, it's modern to them. It's an urban legend for anybody in the present, so for people a long time ago, the legend was urban for them too. But retell a story hundreds of times, it slowly starts to change. That's why I personally question the validity of a lot of this religious stuff. Things get retranslated over and over, things get lost in translations, things get passed orally and then misheard or misinterpreted, the list goes on. When I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, we played a game where one kid would whisper something into the ear of the kid next to him. That kid then turned and whispered what he heard to the next, until it got to the end of the classroom. By the end of it, the final kid was told to repeat what he heard, and it was a completely different sentence than what the very first kid said. No resemblance or connection whatsoever. You ever make a copy of a copy of a copy? After enough remakes, you go far enough down the line, sometimes serious errors occur.
Yes, recoil at the craftsmanship. I could tell I was a fake from the day I was born. Unlike you. Unlike them. You see, Ricks, they get lazy. There's always a shitty decoy towards the end. But those decoys made decoys too, and got lazy themselves. And far enough down the line, there be monsters.
Ugh, we get it. You're ugly and mad about it.
If you want another example, and this should make a lot of you squirm in your seats, it's like inbreeding. Genetic mutations would get worse and worse the longer it goes on. An example of this can be seen in the horror movie Barbarian, where this woman is what you get when you continue incest for long enough. Now, to add to this, of course the spirit is going to change as times change. People change. Japan is no longer feudal Japan. There's no ancient samurai battles today, so the samurai aspect of the story is going to evolve, and so it has. Moving on from Slipmouth game though, and staying on topic of the more modern take of this legend, let's dive into the sequel movie of Carved called Carved 2, The Scissors of Massacre. Alright, so this movie is actually a prequel to Carved 1, and it's directed by Kotaro Terauchi. Personally, I felt like this movie wasn't as good as the first one, but honestly, sequels and prequels rarely end up better than the original anyways. One major issue I had with this movie was that it starts off like a romance drama and stays that way for about half an hour. Now, sometimes that can work when a movie changes shape because it trusts its audience, but it didn't really work for me in this film. Romantic horror is hard to pull off, but I remember watching a movie called Fresh that was able to pull it off well enough. That movie also has a very slow burn, and for the whole first act there's almost zero horror involved. But then when shit finally hits the fan, it hits the fan hard and acts like a total mood shift. Some people don't like that, but I think that when it's designed carefully, it can definitely hit its mark and make the movie more enjoyable. But you have to be able to make the audience feel like the time they've invested was never wasted, so in the beginning segments you would place a lot of elements, explain a lot of characters, and possibly even foreshadow future events, but ultimately keep the big change as a surprise until it happens. Movies changing form like this, reinventing themselves as you watch, requires a patient viewer. I mentioned Barbarian earlier regarding the horrors of inbreeding, but also Barbarian reinvents itself as a film too. Barbarian has a slow yet very dread-inducing first act, and then it cuts to a totally different mood, with a totally different character. And then after a while everything comes together and makes a movie structure that is unorthodox and strange, but in my opinion still works very well for those patient enough to give it a chance. My favorite movie of all time, The Empty Man, also has a super long introduction sequence. It's like 23 minutes or some outrageous number, and then it cuts to 20 years later with a different person and a seemingly different direction, but when everything comes back together it's fucking awesome. Carved 2 didn't necessarily change characters, at least not in that way, but the shift in mood is definitely very abrupt. Having the first part the way it was did not work as well as Barbarian or The Empty Man though, yet I tried to be patient with it, and honestly it did pay off. I feel like no one in this generation has patience anymore. Anyway, the beginning sequence does have, in my opinion, a very poor choice of music though. Music in both games and movies is very important, and the general mood of the beginning part felt a little too far away from what it should have been. Things do come together eventually, but it felt a little scattered by the time that the transition was to be made. So, I've been babbling on. What about these characters? Who's who? The film takes place in Gifu District, Japan in 1978. The main character is Mayumi Sawada, a high school student who lives with her parents and two sisters named Yuki Sawada and Sachiko Sawada. Now, hear me out, because there's a lot of characters in this movie that are introduced within a short amount of time. We'll just call Mayumi Sawada's parents Mr. and Mrs. Sawada. Yuki, one of Mayumi's sisters, works at a hair salon. Sachiko, the eldest of Mayumi's sisters, technically lives out of town and is getting married, but decides to visit her family for a few days prior. This is important because it just so turns out that somebody else is very jealous of the man Sachiko is getting married to. The Sawada family owns a farm business, primarily regarding chicken eggs, and Sachiko's ex, in the beginning, meets with her dad. I don't know Sachiko's ex's name, so he's just gonna be called Sachiko's ex. Anyways, he's a businessman somehow connected in the farm business and wants to work with Sachiko's father, putting his chicken eggs in his store. During this little business transaction or meeting at the farmhouse, Sachiko's ex hands the father some sort of present and asks him to give it to his daughter. So obviously Sachiko's ex still loves Sachiko, but she's getting married with somebody else. Sachiko's ex doesn't understand why and resents her for it so much that he tries to kill her. Around this time, Sachiko was done visiting the family and left to go get married in Tokyo. Now, Mayumi asks if she can have Sachiko's room while she's gone because technically this is her officially moving out once and for all for the wedding and for finding a new place with her husband. Sachiko says sure, she can have her room, it's no problem, but then things take a gruesome turn. Sachiko's ex breaks into the house searching for Sachiko with intent of murdering her out of rage and jealousy. She goes into Sachiko's room thinking Sachiko was the one sleeping in that bed, but in fact it was Mayumi who had moved into that room. Sachiko's ex then pours a bottle of sulfuric acid all over her face, permanently mutilating and scarring her mouth and cheek. He realizes that this is not Sachiko, so he continues to hunt through the house, and Mayumi's screams had woken up her parents, who get up to go see what's going on. The mother, or Miss Sawada, gets attacked by Sachiko's ex. First, she was sliced in the face and then finally killed with a downward blow straight into her open mouth. The father then shoots Sachiko's ex in the head the second he saw his wife die. So now Mayumi is permanently damaged, crawling in pain, and the father watched his wife get killed, and then he had to shoot the killer. Death is everywhere. And because of this, Sachiko of course returns for her mother's funeral and is once again staying at the house. Now I want to rewind just a little and talk about Mayumi at school before she gets scarred by the sulfuric acid. She's actually the fastest person in her school. She's on the track team. And she has a major crush on the captain of the track team, who's like this cool and slick guy whom a lot of other girls already have a crush on too. He's kind of like a greaser type of dude with excessive use of hair gel, and I only say that because it'll make a lot of sense later. The first movie had a theme of abuse, this movie has a theme of romance, but more importantly, romantic failures, rejections, divorces, shit like that, and also just how cruel and relentless life can be, with a cherry on top of how ruthless high school can be for victims of naive kids who bully or spread hurtful rumors about them. Mayumi has two best friends who apparently have been close to each other for years and years. These friends help Mayumi out with mustering up the courage to talk to Seiji, the track captain. And this Seiji has absolutely nothing to do with the Seiji from the Slit-Mouthed game. I think that's just a common Japanese name. Anyway, these three friends are very close and stick up for each other, which Mayumi really needs because she's incredibly shy and a very introverted person. But after Sachiko's ex mistakenly burned Mayumi's face off, when she finally goes back to school, the rumors are terrible. Everyone calls her Mutant Girl, and even her closest friends start to distance themselves. And Mayumi's father, aka Mr. Sawada, can't take the grief from losing his wife, and drives off into the middle of nowhere and blows his brains out. Back at school, some kids make the rumors even worse, basically talking shit about Mayumi's dead father, which prompts her to get into a fight with the girl. This is also as girly as a girl fight can get, but still, Mayumi pretty much beat the shit out of this girl who kept babbling her mouth about shit that she had no right saying. Out of rage and frustration, perhaps also depression, or the mixture of them all, That causes Mayumi to slap her rapidly, which I'm not sure if that's how the fight really would have gone down, or if the director of the film didn't know how to film real punches the right way. Anyway, after this, her friends really distance themselves and no longer even associate with Mayumi, because if they do, then they get laughed at. But if you ask me, a true friend would risk the humiliation if they really, truthfully had your back and didn't care about reputation or status. But this is high school, what can you expect? Mayumi lost her mother, her father, her own face, and now her friends. But it doesn't stop there. The guy she has a crush on, Seiji, is leaving to go to college in Tokyo. And at this time, it's the end of the school year. Mayumi was a junior, I think, and Seiji was a senior, so he's graduating. I'm skipping over a lot of stuff that happened in the beginning because you don't really need to know about it. Now, this is where the actual slit-mouthed woman starts to come into play, because remember, this is a prequel. Mayumi starts to go a little crazy as she keeps seeing an ominous ghost-like figure wearing a red coat. Rumors say that because of all the death that happened in that house, it's haunted, and Mayumi's sisters also believe that the reason Mayumi is acting weird is a combination of stress, grief, depression, and hopelessness given everything that has happened. But Mayumi, as you might have suspected, wasn't crazy or seeing delusional hallucinations. However, at the house, when she saw the red coat woman again, she was terrified and called her sister for help, begging her to come home early. Then the red coat woman gets closer to Mayumi, despite her locking all the doors and trying to hide from her, and Mayumi screams in terror, only to find that it wasn't actually some ghost, but it was her own sister Sachiko. But she's wearing an outfit nothing like the red coat woman, so that does beg the question, is she just going crazy, or was it the spirit of Kuchisake-Onna? I don't know if this false scare is supposed to connect to how in the first carved movie, Kuchisake-Onna could basically change her body to look like somebody else when the spirit left the area, but who knows. This plays into her older sisters being worried about Mayumi because she's grown a habit of locking all the doors and being terribly frightened at everything. The next morning on the news, it is reported that 2 schoolgirls, her best friends, had been killed by a woman with scissors. So this is when Seiji comes back to Gifu from Tokyo to attend these 2 girls' funerals, which is just a singular dual funeral, because they were also on the track team, so he knew them and wanted to pay his respects, but also to check on Mayumi. Seiji and Mayumi have a particular spot with a really good view up on a mountainside trail that the team would hike, so Seiji takes her there one last time. Up until this point, Mayumi was still in love with Seiji, and they even wrote letters back and forth from Gifu to Tokyo, but it turns out Seiji actually is seeing somebody else, and never really thought of Mayumi as a date, but more like a younger sister, or just a trusted friend. This breaks Mayumi's heart, as Seiji was pretty much the last good thing she had, and she snaps. Mayumi brutally murders Seiji with a pair of scissors. This scene is the main transition I was talking about, because a lot of things were left up in the air until now, a lot of things unanswered, and the movie had been rolling for a long time without a very clear direction, until we cut to Mayumi washing the blood off her pair of scissors and her hands, and this is when the movie kicks into 11th gear. It turns out Mayumi has somehow become the slit-mouthed woman, meaning the ghostly red coat figure somehow merged with her, or maybe was like some unconscious alter ego slowly creeping its way into the conscious. Mayumi then gets these strange flashbacks of murdering her school friends, like some repressed memory reattaching itself. The police suspect Mayumi, but of course she lies and she says she has no idea what they're talking about, and that Seiji and her were never dating, which is technically true, and that her and those other 2 girls weren't best friends, which is also technically true considering how they treated her when she needed them most, but she still denied any crime. However, Mayumi's sister, Yuki, gets off work early one day by pretending she's sick and investigates Mayumi's room while she's at school. She finds a blood-stained shirt in her closet. Yuki confronts Sachiko, but they both come to the conclusion that they can't go to the police. They've already had so much attention drawn to them, so much drama, so much death, that they'd never be able to really have the careers they want. Yuki in particular has been offered to manage the new barbershop, but Sachiko points out that she can forget all that if it is found out Mayumi did these horrific crimes. The following morning, it's on the news that yet another murder of some nameless person has happened, We never really know who. The point is just that Mayumi is becoming a serial killer. She's actively doing the Scissors Massacre. To put an end to this, Sachiko poisons Mayumi's drink with rat poison, and she dies coughing up blood. Yuki and Sachiko then work together to bury Mayumi's body far away from town off into the woods. When they return, Yuki in particular starts to truly feel ill. She didn't know that Sachiko was going to poison Mayumi, she only knew that somehow things had to stop. She didn't want Mayumi to die, but she also helped bury her body. In the barber shop, she struggles to cut hair with a pair of scissors, her hand shaking at both the new terrible symbolism of those scissors and also the loss of her sister that she can't talk about. Following this, we see what appears to be the walking corpse of Mayumi heading toward town. Somehow she has come back to life, or perhaps she never really truly died, given the supernatural element of the spirit that has possessed her. This resurrected Mayumi visits Yuki in her barbershop and uses a pair of scissors to brutally kill both Yuki and her employer. She doesn't lash out and kill the other random people in the salon though. This tells us she's not on an aimless, bloodthirsty rampage, but rather she's seeking vengeance for all those who wronged her, as well as anybody who gets in her way. Mayumi, now officially the vessel for Kuchisake-Onna, then goes back to the house and tries to kill Sachiko. However, Sachiko gets a hold of a kitchen knife and stabs Mayumi in the stomach. In this moment though, she leaves the knife stuck inside of her, which annoyed me a little bit. I mean, I get it, she's scared, her dead sister came back to life, she doesn't know what to do. But this felt like one of those slasher tropes of just really poor decision making. Some of you might think I'm overreacting at that, but if you're ever faced with a situation like this, never abandon your weapon. Or if you're too fucking scared to pull the knife out of your zombie sister, go grab another knife. But no, of course, Sachiko runs off, and it isn't long until Mayumi crawls back to her feet, hunts Sachiko down, and stabs her to death. And this last killing sequence sadly felt laughable and way over the top. I can appreciate the idea for the cinematography or camera work, but flipping back and forth between Sachiko's face as she's getting stabbed and the other side of the garage type door did not work at all. The holes that were made were all over the place. If she really was getting stabbed with her entire torso being penetrated by those scissors, the holes would make a much more tightly clumped cluster and would not be so spread out. I thought that would be common sense for whoever poked those holes in when filming, but it is what it is, I guess. Right after this last kill, Mayumi opens her mouth to perform the famous Glasgow grin. Although it doesn't make a lot of sense for her mouth to be able to open on her left cheek the way it did, because the scar in this movie is done by sulfuric acid burns, it's not even a slit. But I get it, the new director wanted it to be a little different. However, as much as I adore creativity, sometimes creativity on its own isn't enough. With something like this, it needs to be careful, it's a puzzle piece that needs to be the right shape, and this smiling part as well as Sachiko's death are both creative but miss their mark because of being illogical. The stab holes in the wall, for one, are the perfect example of that. For Mayumi's burned face transforming into a fucking snake-like unhinged half-smile, it doesn't work the same way that it would have worked if the mouth itself was slit and not just burned. Whereas in the first movie, it makes sense that she can open her mouth in this horrible way, but I won't be too rough on it because we are talking about a paranormal entity that can do all kinds of wild shit, so what if her face can change like that? Why not, right? It just still feels like the writing wasn't as well thought out as it could have been. Yes, I'm nitpicking. If I don't, no one else will. I can't help but notice these things. After all these killings, the legend of Kuchisake-Onna begins with its origins from around 1978 and 1979, and possibly with deeper roots of the entity from the Edo period. One thing that tied this movie to the next pretty nicely, though, was the mentioning of Mayumi being the fastest on the track team. As people spread rumors and tell stories, they say that the slit-mouthed woman can run roughly 100 meters in 3 seconds flat. Now, remember, the legend says that she has incredible speed. There is no outrunning her, so you're forced to answer her questions of whether or not you think she is pretty. So that makes a lot of sense, although that is super fucking fast. Still, it has a clear origin in this movie. Furthermore, some of the rumors say they heard she wears a red coat, and some say that it was actually beige. In the first Carved movie, her coat is definitely beige though, and in this movie, Carved 2, the beige coat belonged to one of the sisters. After Sachiko poisons Mayumi and she falls dead to the floor, Yuki can't stop looking at her, so Sachiko throws this beige coat over her body. This is the same coat that Mayumi starts wearing when she goes on to kill everybody in the first movie. Additionally, if you remember Mayumi's crush named Seiji, who she killed after being led on and kind of betrayed a bit, one of the rumors at the end is that the slit-mouthed woman can be repelled if you say hair gel 3 times. Remember when I mentioned pomade, the type of hair grease that was popular in Japan, and how in the legend, saying this 3 times is a way to ward off Kuchisake-Onna? It makes sense now, considering when you say pomade or hair gel, Mayumi would then think of Seiji, the track team captain who was cool and slick and used hair gel. So she still loves Seiji, but kind of greedily acted like if she can't love him, no one can, and then killed him because Seiji saw Mayumi as nothing more than a friend with sister-like qualities. When I first read that saying pomade repelled this yokai, I had no idea where they were trying to go with that, and it's still very odd unless you've watched this movie, or now this video so far. So these types of rumors tie in well with the legend and connect over to the first movie, just called Carved. Despite the final kill and the final smile being sloppily written, in my opinion, things wrap up decent enough. Overall, I still like the first movie more, but this is not a bad prequel. In Western cinema, I've definitely seen much worse prequels and sequels. I mean, look at the Amityville franchise or even the Conjuring franchise. I saw Nun on an airplane and thought it was one of the weakest horror movies in that whole paranormal realm. But that's my personal preference. Some of you might hate the movies I love and love the movies I hate. That's how it works. Never take movie reviews to heart, and always remember that even in videos like this, the way I break down movies and games and historical things, it's still me writing this script. Sure, facts are facts, but some of you watching might go out of your way to play Kuchisake-Onna or Slipmouthed, or maybe you'll watch Carved or Carved 2 and have a totally different experience than I did, based on your personality, your mindset, your beliefs, and so on, which is fine.
I'm gonna hide in the car though as long as I can, because Jesus Christ. Oh God. You.
Carved and Carved 2 aren't the only movies about Kuchisake-Onna. There's also Kuchisake-Onna 0 and Slit-Mouthed Woman in LA. But I didn't think these movies were worth the breakdown and analysis compared to Carved and its prequel. The Carved movies are the most popular films that include this Japanese yokai, and they're also, to me, the only ones worth watching. However, I did include some clips from those other movies throughout this video, because why not? but I wouldn't really recommend watching these two films unless you're obsessed with this legend and want to consume every bit of every form of slit-mouthed woman media you can. The Slit-Mouthed Woman in LA movie was done more recently in 2014, whereas Carved 1 and 2 were 2007 and 2008. So the cinematography is more up to date, but the plot itself is just bad. Kuchisake-Onna 0 was done in 2008, the same year as Carved 2, but in my opinion just falls short of what Carved 2 had in every way. Also in Japanese cinema, there are a lot of horror icon versus movies that are never really that great. There's a whole other legend called Mori Hikiko, and there's a movie called Hikiko versus the Slit-Mouthed Woman, but I refuse to watch that. Maybe one day I will, but not for this video. There's also a legend called Teke Teke, aka Kashima-san. This is yet another murderous yokai movie, and there is a game called Teke Teke developed by the same people who developed the Slit-Mouthed game, so maybe sometime I'll check that out, considering there is a Kashima-san versus Kuchisake-Onna movie too, which pains me to even say, but we'll see. Definitely not doing it in this video. I think I've done enough. I think there's even a sequel to that versus movie, and the thought of that scares me more than the movie would. Another one is Kuchisake-Onna Returns, which I also have just no desire to watch. This legend is obviously very popular, and I know that these monster versus movies aren't just a thing in Japan. We have our own shitty creations in America. I mean, the biggest ones I can think of are Freddy vs. Jason and Batman vs. Superman, and then Godzilla movies, but those newer ones are like American adopted Japanese films. Godzilla King of Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong, I don't know. Sometimes if the action aspect of the film is good enough to satisfy the drooling mouths of an audience who just wants to see two icons brawl it out, then it could work. But it gets very dangerous when you start making horror icons go against each other. Many people hate Freddy vs. Jason, and I understand why. You kinda have to make it scary, gruesome, entertaining, and also have its fair share of action all in one movie. Where that becomes a problem is it's hard to scare an audience when the two things that we are usually scared of are killing each other. That is why I really don't care to watch these Kuchisake-Onna versus whoever the fuck movies, because we're not gonna learn anything from it. These types of versus movies are designed specifically for mindless entertainment, and if you're into that, cool, but I'm not. Or rather, I could be, but I'm very picky with it. Hence, I won't be dissecting any other Kuchisake-Onna movies in this video, not only because it's already super long, but because I think we understand enough about the Slit-Mouthed Woman. There isn't much to gain from watching these other movies because for the most part they are money grabs, or if the directors and writers happen to be passionate about their project, they're probably going to put their own twists on it, and those twists in my opinion can only be ideas spiraling downward from Carved 2. I bet someone else tries to reinvent how she got the scars, or maybe some other key element of her character that is now just different and doesn't add up to the other movies whatsoever. On a side note, I just thought about this. The game franchise Mortal Kombat has a character named Melina who has razor sharp teeth and a split open mouth. The Mortal Kombat franchise uses a lot of Japanese symbolism, ideas, inspiration, and so on. I mean, the actual names of Sub-Zero and Scorpion are Kuai Lang and Hanzo Hasashi. The game itself is very much American, but many of the forms of martial arts in the game, and obviously the characters, and much of the lore has clear connections to Japan. So it's possible this Melina character was perhaps inspired by the Slit-Mouthed Woman, but I cannot say for sure. I did some deeper digging and research on Kuchisake-Onna, and I found some other things that are pretty interesting. This is strictly talking about the spirit's folklore, the rumors of this myth or legend, and just general information that I likely wouldn't get from watching those other lesser quality Slit-Mouthed Woman movies. To start with, I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but this is the meaning of the name Kuchisake-Onna broken down. Kuchi means mouth, even though some of the immature Westerners watching are giggling at that. Sake means split, and Onna means woman. However, sake is also a Japanese alcoholic beverage. I think in Japan they sometimes call it nihonshu, but there is kind of a funny meaning to this. Sake, meaning alcohol, technically also means spirit, because in English, spirit is also another word for alcohol. And this is off topic, but one of my favorite wordplays is from Rhyme Asylum, from the rapper in that group named Cyclone on the song Stark Raving Genius. He says,
Duct tape preventing communication, cold sweats in pitch black icy rooms, demented hallucinations, phobias taken to their vertical limits, twisted priests resurrect Satan's soul through surgical spirit.
Surgical spirit is basically rubbing alcohol, but he describes it in a wordplay that utilizes both meanings. So kuchi means mouth, sake means split, but I honestly think it would make sense, at least to my American ears, to also mean spirit, and onna means woman. But the correct Japanese word for spirit is seishin, or they might just say onryo or yokai. And on the topic of spirits, I think if anybody watched this video from the beginning and took a shot of sake, every time I said the word scissors, they die of alcohol poisoning. This is a diagram made by someone named Benjamin Mako Hill. Everything in this diagram is as it should be, except for one thing. If you say she's not pretty, the way she kills you is supposedly by cutting you in half. Personally, I love that idea, especially after everything I said about the symbolism of scissors. Splitting things in half, cutting to abrupt endings, and so on. Although as cool as that is for a murder concept, I haven't heard that anywhere else other than the one website I found this diagram on, but I like it so much, I'm going to pretend that it's accurate. On the same site, I found some more info about the connection of Kuchisake-Onna to the Edo period of Japan. Apparently, various stories from the Edo period describe a man who encounters a beautiful woman whose face he cannot see. He tries to talk to her, then finds out that her mouth has been slit open when she turns around. Sometimes she kills him, sometimes she disappears. Now, that could very well be a load of crap, and for that matter, this entire legend could have spawned off one idea that spread through fear and panic and practically self-manipulated mass hysteria, because that's how most concepts like this happen. Perhaps one person did in fact have horrific facial scars and scared the shit out of some samurai dude, and he told his folks, and then something similar happened somewhere else, and then fingers got pointed, misinformation got spread, incorrect connections got made, and legends became born. Or there's a lot more to it, and my puny American mind so far away from Japan just can't quite connect the dots. I don't know. I also found this interesting piece of information regarding some apparently very real events that could have sparked the beginning of the more modern legend. So according to someone named Matthew Meyer, who is an illustrator and folklorist based in Japan, who has this website that is basically a database for different yokai. According to him, there were a number of Kuchisake-Onna sightings in the 20th century. In the 70s, a woman who was chasing little children was hit by a car and her face was ripped open from ear to ear. After that accident, a large panic of sightings happened. Other variations of the urban legend have to deal with the woman butchered by plastic surgery. So there's like 7 different possible versions of this entity with multiple different potential origin stories. Perhaps they are all in some way the same thing. Previously I mentioned the book Man and His Symbols and talked about the collective unconscious. Well, it could be that there is something deeply rooted in our unconscious minds that can draw real connections between these different versions. But that would likely just be for those who live in Japan and of whom their ancestors' ancestors would have to also have been around this legend one way or another. Or again, maybe it's all a load of bullshit. I can't say for sure. I can only speculate and be open-minded, but I will also not believe in something just because other people believe in it. There's also a short story about Kuchisake-Onna, roughly 55 pages, called The Horror of Kuchisake-Onna, written by Arabella Wyatt. I read this for free with a 30-day trial of Scribed. I thought overall it was just kind of okay, but there's definitely some really good ideas in the story. For starters, in chapter 2, when the first murder occurs, the silhouette of Kuchisake-Onna is standing across a dark and grimy alleyway, and standing probably 50 feet away, she asks the question, "Am I pretty?" But despite there being a considerable distance between her and the main character, the voice apparently sounds like it was right up to her ear. I really like this idea, and it reminds me of Carved, when Noboru can hear the voice of Kuchisake-Onna coming from some distant location, yet still somehow is audible to him. This book also makes up another way that Kuchisake-Onna got her scarred face. Apparently in this story, the vengeful spirit, before it was a spirit, was brutally abused and beaten until one day the abuse had killed her. Supposedly her mouth became ripped open after having a broken glass bottle shoved down her throat, after which her tongue was pulled from her mouth. One of the rumors that continues this claims that Kuchisake-Onna started taking her revenge on the village first. They all knew of the beatings, but they looked away and would not interfere. After the villagers had been killed or had fled in terror, Kuchisake-Onna then continued to seek revenge against all of society. Personally, I kinda get it, society fucking sucks, but not everyone plays a part in your individual suffering, and believe it or not, but almost all of us are suffering in our own way. Vengeance only works for so long until it is nothing more than an excuse to aim rage and wrath into directions that leave unnecessary collateral damage. This short book is not bad by any means. I can nitpick some of the writing choices, but it does a decent job at capturing the horror of Kuchisake-Onna. That's the title. The main character, or characters, are from the US but speak fluent Japanese and are on a business trip that goes horribly wrong as one of them gets killed by the slit-mouthed woman, and things kind of spiral out of control from there. Some scenes in the story feel a little amateur, or just like what you'd expect from the average 19-year-old writing horror, although I think this author is older than that. She has a handful of books on Amazon you can find. I just know from the stuff that I write, as well as looking at the writing of authors I adore, that the horror of Kuchisake-Onna just kind of comes off as mediocre. But it could be much, much worse. It's not a terrible fan adaptation, but it also wasn't very captivating for me, nor did it really scare me. However, I do applaud this author's ability to make what she made out of this legend. I just wish it was an actual book, not some 50-page short story, because when a chapter is like 3 pages long, for one, that's easy to write, but also the plot structure becomes very rushed and thus more sloppy, less things make sense, and I mean, some people really like that fast-paced structure. I personally have also been a sucker for psychological slow burns, cosmic horror, and intense suspenseful mystery. This book feels like what might have been assigned as a final in my creative writing class in high school, but I'm not trying to shit on it because I've seen some terrible writing out there. This isn't it. It's just, to me, right in the middle ground of understanding what you're writing about, but not quite hitting the mark and not using the full potential of the tools you have to work with, and not the greatest storytelling. But don't get me wrong, this book to me is a better horror adaptation of The Slit-Mouthed Woman than those other shitty movies that were made. And I got this digitally for free using the Scribed trial, so it's not like I really paid to read this book. Therefore, for me, it's just art, not a product. And while there weren't a whole lot of things I enjoyed in this, there was enough. The horror elements and the creepily detailed scenes were skillfully designed, but given that there were only 50 pages to cram a story into, the plot was way too jumpy for me. Give me a 200-page book with the same horror elements in this, and then you'd have something really special. But trust me, I know firsthand it's not fucking easy to write a book and finish a book. At least not a full-length book. I could probably get by without a sweat making a 50-page short story, especially if it was about an already existing legend, but I still appreciate the effort nonetheless. Plenty of people have a lot to say about writing they dislike, but they themselves have never pushed a pen in the same mindset as the author they criticize. And I think that's gonna be about it for The Slit-Mouthed Woman. I really wish there was a third game out there that was finished that I could play, because as laughable as the first one was, it was still fun, and I also definitely enjoyed the Slit-Mouthed game. Diving into this legend was very interesting. Seeing the different variations of Kuchisake-Onna's origins and how to evade her was a fun ride for me. I know that somewhere on the internet, if I were to dig deep enough, there might be some other obscure Kuchisake-Onna short stories or low-budget movies, but I don't really think it's necessary to analyze everything. If I end up doing a video on another random onryo and yokai, I might include that Teka legend in order to then include those Kuchisake-Onna versus Teka movies, but I don't know. It's too early for me to say. There's other videos that I have been working on for fucking ever that are almost done, and those will have to come first. If you made it this far, you're awesome, and I appreciate you for watching for this long. Although I imagine that's probably a whopping total of like 3 people. You few are fucking cool. I hope that after watching this, awareness, you have changed mindset revolving the lore around Japanese yokai, and perhaps ghosts in general, but with emphasis on this particular spirit. This has been my personal spiral into madness under the theme of Kuchisake-Onna, the Slit-Mouthed Woman.